Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Penguin Nonsense. I am your host, Edith, and I'm sorry last week I couldn't give you an episode. I sadly got COVID, which is kind of ironic, right? I literally just had a story about it, 2 weeks ago, and how things have uplifted a little bit. The emergency thing has been called off and everything, but it is still out there, and I am an obvious example that it is still out there. Thankfully, I am doing great. Thankfully, it didn't hit me hard, and I am perfectly fine. But yeah, just stay safe out there, okay, guys? Without making this any longer, thank you for listening, wherever you may be listening, whether it's Spotify, YouTube, and let's get on to our stories for the week. So, our first story is from Russia, and this story is about how a lot of people have been leaving Russia, and it has to do with the Ukrainian and Russian war. And it says Russians had been leaving even before the Ukraine war started, including those who disagree with Moscow's annexation of Crimea in 2014. And with the new laws that made it easier to punish dissent, many settled in the Baltic states and other European countries as well as in Georgia. For Slavana, the full-scale invasion of Ukraine of 2022 was a turning point. The war started, she says, when the war started, I realized that it would not be over soon and also that people would not come out of protest or to protest. I felt both emotionally and rationally it made sense to leave. She says she is now in Belgrade, Serbia's capital. I wanted to put as great of a distance between myself and their authorities as possible. And many Russians share her feelings and been a trickle turned into a stream. The first wave came in March and April of last year. New immigrants told the BBC they were against the war and disappointed. More Russians did not come out to protest. Feeling isolated and at risk, they felt that it was safer to leave. President Putin began a military mobilization in September 2022, described as partial by the authorities. In reality, it meant most men were at risk of draft. Numerous reports followed of poor training and insufficient kits provided to the newly conscripted. Men and their families started leaving in droves, creating day-long queues in the Russian borders with Georgia and Kazakhstan. The Russian president's official spokesman Dmitry Peskov has denied Russians were leaving en masse to avoid being drafted. In April, Russian authorities introduced an online call-up where new conscripts could add to a digital register rather than be handed papers by hand. He also denied that the new system was designed to stop the flow of men leaving. So how many are left and where are they going to? There is no exact figure how many people are left in Russia, but estimates vary from hundreds of thousands to several million. In May, the UK Ministry of Defense estimated 1.3 million people leaving Russia in 2002. Other estimates of figures from various sources confirm the trend. Forbes magazine cited sources inside the Russian authorities in saying that in between 600,000 and 1 million people left in 2022. And it goes to show that leaving Russia is relatively easy as long as you have money and have not been called up to the army, but finding a permanent place is hard to say. So apparently, according to the article, mostly the European and the US have made it difficult for Russians to apply for visa unless they already have family here or are traveling for work. Other countries such as Georgia and Armenia, Russians face no restrictions and could come and go as they please, and they still can. Other countries, including Kazakhstan changed the laws earlier this year reportedly to stem the flow of Russian immigrants by limiting how many days they can stay out as tourists. So, needless to say, as much as they're trying to flee this war because they don't agree with this war, they also don't really have much of an option to go and stay or live permanently somewhere else. I think it's no secret that everybody just has a thing against Russia or Russians in general, but we also have to think of the fact that not every Russian is out to take over the world or whatever. We also have to think that these are families who don't want to do this war, who really genuinely just want the better for their kids. And as a kid from an immigrant family, I understand this very well because you're just trying to flee a country that has given you so much heartache, so much problems and everything to give your kids or your family a better place. And even though some men are leaving because they want to avoid the draft, even though Putin says that's not really what's going on, but for the most part, according to the general people, that is what's going on. They don't want to be forced to be put into this war that they never wanted to begin with. It's not a war that's justifiable just because you want more land or just because you want to take over this part or you think this should belong to you. It doesn't matter. I feel like no piece of, um, I guess, of whatever he thinks is correct is not correct in any sense at this moment. Like, there should be no reason why you should have to go to war at this point in time. And sadly, it's sad that other countries aren't opening their borders to these people who need the help. And I think it's even more sad that the U.S. tends to go to other countries and um, butts in my opinion, to give them freedom, but yeah, won't take in people who need help fleeing these countries. So I think it's kind of crazy, but I hope that things look up for them sometime. I know that wars are just going to get more crazier and more out there, and I think it's just one of those things where we just kind of had to keep everyone in prayer and just kind of keep in mind that these things are bound to happen, and sadly a lot of good people will go with it, but also a lot of bad people will go with it, and there's nothing we as normal humans can do to stop any of it. Sadly, there is people out there who just want to see the world burn, and sadly, there is people out there who just want some peace. And there will always be these two, and all we can do is help the people who we can help. So, definitely something interesting to keep looking at, seeing where they go with this, seeing if eventually maybe a lot of the Russians do end up leaving, and hopefully they find a better place for them. So, our our best of luck to these families, to these men and women and children, that they find better place than where they are at the moment. So yeah. So on to our next story. So apparently a lot of y'all have seen a story rolling around the internet of the Dollar General manager, or I'm not sure if it was just a cashier or whatnot, who I guess drove her car into a thief who was stealing from the store and his bicycle. So it has been a big trend. And instead of having a typical Am I the A-hole story from Reddit, I thought this would be a great story because it really is like, what do you think? Was this lady in a-hole for running him down with her car, or was she not? So the story was of a doorbell footage, and it shows the lady's name was Jessie smashing her car into an alleged shoplifter while he was riding a bike down a residential street, with the crash scattering the alleged stolen items all over someone's front yard. The incident went down earlier this month, and Jessie says once the video was on the internet, she was canned. Jessie claims that the guy walked out with flowers, chips, donuts, bread, cheese, bologna, and other items without paying, and says she chased him down and asked him to give the stuff back. When he refused and called her a bitch, Jessie says that she tried to stop him with her car. The guy in the video threatened to press charges against Jessie, but she says that she hasn't seen or heard from him, and police told us they responded to the scene, but the guy was nowhere to be found, so no report was taken. The frustration in her voice is clear, and Jessie is now working for DoorDash. Um, so if you were wondering, she did get fired. Um, she does get to state that the Dollar General cashier who took down the alleged shoplifter with a card says that she's been fired after the footage and the incident went viral. The Dollar General employee in the video says that she's upset about her firing because she loved her job and she thought she was a good cashier who had former employer's best interests at heart. So, I have no. I don't know which way to side with this. She really. I honestly believe she was really just trying to do the goodness out of heart. As a person who worked in retail, or I guess in a store, I used to work for Dollar Tree, and you would be so surprised at how many people come in there and steal. It is ridiculous. It's only 125. And I am the type of person who believes that I don't consent the fact of shoplifting, but I do understand that sometimes people have it really hard. And if you steal like a pack of meat or a pack of like hot dogs, bread, or whatever it was, that maybe it was just one or two things, but just because you really, really, really needed it because you couldn't afford to pay for them. I understand everybody goes through rough times, and I do feel like there's plenty of resources out there that people could go to get a plate of food, but sometimes people make bad choices. And so I understand that. But this guy had donuts, flowers, chips. It wasn't just normal, like, I want to take some bread and some bologna, like, because I'm hungry. And I think if you listen to the whole video, he does say that you don't know what kind of life I have or that kind of stuff, like why you're taking this so personal, that kind of stuff. And and the lady Jessie, she does say that apparently this is a guy who comes and steals often, so she was kind of tired of it. And other people do steal from the store a lot, apparently, according to her. So she was just tired of it, and that's why she did what she did. But at the same time, like in Dollar Tree, we wouldn't do anything if we saw somebody shoplifting because we didn't have that, I guess, authority. If we really did know that that person was absolutely selling and we try to like confront it, then we could, but we would have to have like real hardcore evidence that that person was stealing. For the most part, it was kind of hard to say, oh, this person is stealing, because you're calling somebody out of the whole store to say, hey, you're stealing, put the items back, that kind of stuff. So it's very iffy, and you never know if this person can carry a gun or it's just not right in the head. And it's, as a human, you think of all the possibilities that could possibly go wrong. For $1.25 item, are you willing to put your life at risk? Probably not, at least not in my case. So I definitely understand that she was sick of it. She was sick of it happening. But this was totally to a new level. Like, I mean, I'm no one to judge this guy. I'm no one to say that he is or isn't needing the help. But to steal all these extra stuff that you really don't need for survival, I think it was more of, I want to steal because I want to steal, than I have to steal because I have to. You know? And I think it's, and some people might get mad at me for saying this, but I think nowadays finding a job is not that hard because everybody has quit the industry. Like, a lot of industries, a lot of like meals, a lot of offices, a lot of things, because people are working from home, or they're have decided that they want to keep off living the government money or whatnot, whatever may be their situation. But there is so many places hiring now that you can't really say, oh, I can't find a job. You can't find a job. And obviously he had a bike, so he could have found a job in use his bike to go to that job. So, like I said, I don't know his situation, but that's how I feel about the situation. I don't think she was an a-hole. I honestly don't think she meant to drive into the guy. From what I could see from the video, is that she drove in front of him, which caused him to, because he was still driving, he was still like pushing forward with his bike, caused him to crash into the car. And I didn't think she thought that she was so close to him that he would just flip over in her car to crash. I think she thought that if she got right in front of him, he was gonna stop and she was gonna, get out. But I think she was just so mad that at that point she didn't really care. She didn't care that this was, this had escalated to the point it did. So I don't know. I don't think she was the a-hole. I think it was strong of Dollar General to fire her. I really think she was just looking out for the best of her store employees. But I know a lot of the internet people were like, "Oh, you should sue her. You should sue Dollar General." Blah blah blah. And a lot of people are like, "Is that what we've come to defending thieves, to defending, you know, criminal offenses?" So I don't know. I want to know what you guys think. Do you think she was right? Do you think she wasn't right? I try to see both sides of the story, that this guy maybe really needed it, but at the same time, there's plenty of stuff out there that he could have done to not have to go that route. So let me know what you guys think down below on the comments on our YouTube, and there will be a poll on our Spotify one to see if you thought she was or wasn't the a-hole. Okay, so on to our last and third story of the day. So, like always, we have a feel-good story of the greatness of time going by. So, this article was how an owner got her diamond ring back 13 years after flushing it down the toilet. So, the article goes, 13 years after it flushed down a toilet, an anniversary gift was returned. At a Minnesota regional water treatment plant this past March, employees were shoveling through detritus that when they came across the long lost ring of Mary Strand. According to the NBC affiliate KARE 11, 13 years before the ring was found in the Rough of the Waves plant, it was a 33rd wedding anniversary present given to Strand by her husband Dave. Strand lost the ring one day when she was in the bathroom of her home, and the ring slipped off her finger and into the toilet. It was swirling around, and I truly drove for it. It went down the drain, she explained. I was thinking he'll never buy me another ring, and I felt really bad because it was a gift. Down the toilet the ring went, and despite the spectacular coincidence of her husband being the owner of a drain and sewer company, it was cast adrift. Over a decade went by with it being lost. Then came the fateful day the employees at Rogers, Minnesota plant, John Turney, a mechanical maintenance manager amongst them, spotted a sparkle of light in the debris. Seeing the ring's unique design, Turney felt the attempting to return the ring wouldn't be a complete and utter wild goose chase. So the Metropolitan Council raised the flag on social media, describing their discovery as a needle in the haystack. So they put the little picture of what they sent out on their social medias, and they wrote, "Recently, we found a ring in our regional wastemaker treatment plants." They wrote in the tweet, which included an image of the ring in a haystack, which included an image of a ring in a haystack. "This is a rare occurrence, and we want to return the ring to its owner. Please contact us if you lost a wedding ring down the drain." Hundreds of calls poured into the plant in response to the reports and circulated from wishful thinkers who were told to submit photos of the ring. Ultimately, 2 local jewelers examined photos and found that one picture looked like a match. It was the one that belonged to Strand. The ring emerged from the plant, which of all places is located on the road called Diamond Lake. The worst for wear is back in Strand's possessions. According to KARE 11, she'll have it reset and ready to wear for her 46-year anniversary with her husband. So how cute is that? Like 13 years later, you know? Um, it was sweet that her husband got her that anniversary gift, but dang, like to think, oh, it's down the toilet now, it's gone. Like you don't really think of when you lose something like to the toilet or to the sink or these very strange places or the lake, the ocean, or whatnot. It's gonna come back to you because these places, there's no real like where would the wind take it type of situation. Like you don't really think you're gonna get it back. So for her, for 13 years to have passed, like I'm sure she gave up after the 2 weeks that she was like, I'm sure she gave up that very same day because she lost it to the toilet. So she was like, yeah, it's gone. Like there's no, I'm gonna find it next week. So I'm sure that she thought she was never gonna get that ring back. But the thing it was nice that it was so unique that the people at the water treatment center were like, you know what, this is a possibility we could find this, the owner of this ring because of how unique it is. And after all this, and I'm glad that no, they didn't put like the picture of the actual ring. They just put like bringing the needle of haystack, and just had people, send in the pictures of the rings they had lost, because that way nobody could be like, oh yeah, that is my ring. So I think it was very good of them. They really created a good way of finding the real owner of this ring. So that was great, and I'm really happy for her. And I think that's a good way to end the episode on a positive note, that don't give up. You never know what 10 years down the road you might get that one thing you wanted that you might have lost back. It has the way of finding its way back. There's a cute saying of, if it belongs to you, it'll find its way back to you. Like, let it go, and if it belongs to you, it'll come back to you, or something like that. And that's a good way to keep going in life. If it's meant for you, it will come back to you, or it will stay with you. So definitely this article reminds me of that saying. So keep your hopes up and know that if it belongs to you, if it's meant for you, it'll come back to you, even if it's from a wasteland of poop. It'll make its way back to you for sure. But thank you for listening, and that was our last story. I hope to see you again next Monday. And before I go, thank you for listening on our Spotify and our YouTubes, and keep following us on our Instagram and TikTok. I am trying to be more active on making the little videos to add to my social medias, but between work and church and trying to get this together and trying to have a social life, it's really hectic. So my props go out to all those people who have made this their living, social media. But it really is rough. So my props to them. I know people are always like, oh, they're just making a video, like how hard could that be? It's actually a lot of work. The editing, the actual having the time to do all that editing, having the time to record, and if you have special guests, getting them on the right schedule and all that stuff. So it really is rough. But I will try to do that more often. But thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great week. I hope your Monday start off right, and I'll see you next Sunday. Bye, guys.